I want to talk about something interesting that I noticed when I left on February 16th, left my home, Something quite interesting. I told a few neighbors what I was going to do. I told them very calmly, I'm going to live in my car for a while. I have a plan. I know where I'm parking at night. I know where I'll use Wi-Fi. I've thought this through. And the reaction? Borderline panic. Not from me, but from them. It was like I had just announced I was jumping off a literal cliff. How are you going to do that? That's horrible. You can't do that. Why don't you call your family? Are you sure it's that bad? I'm sure they don't hate you like you think they do. Ugh, that one though. And what struck me wasn't the concern, it was the disbelief. It was like they literally could not compute a human choosing something outside the conventional script. In their minds, there are only a few acceptable paths. You lose housing, so you call family. You struggle financially, so you get a job in town. You don't feel safe, so you go back to what's familiar. That's the template. And if you choose something outside that template, it short circuits people. But here's what I figured out. When you step outside the system, people assume you're in danger because they've never seen someone choose uncertainty over conformity. They equate unconventional with unsafe. But those two things are not the same. For me, going back to family would not be safety. It would be regression. It would be putting myself back in dynamics that I have spent my entire life getting out of. And I get really frustrated when people try to override my lived experience with their assumptions. Everybody doesn't hate you. Your family can't be that bad. It's probably not what you think. You don't get to rewrite someone else's story just because it makes you uncomfortable. Just because something is uncommon doesn't mean it's impossible. Just because you haven't lived it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Some people have very complex family dynamics. Some people have environments that look normal on the outside but are suffocating on the inside. Some people grow up in systems that train them to doubt their own perception. And when you finally trust yourself enough to say, no, I'm not going back to that, people panic. Because if you can survive outside the structure, it forces them to question whether the structure is actually necessary. And most people don't want to question that. It's easier to label you unstable than to examine their own dependency on the system. And I don't mean system like in some dramatic way. I just mean like the unspoken script, right? Get a job, pay the bills, stay in the family narrative, don't rock the boat, don't step too far outside the lines. And if you do, you must be desperate, you must be crazy, you must be irrational, you must be losing it. But what if you're not? What if you're calm? What if you've thought it through? What if you've accepted the discomfort of uncertainty because you know that certainty in the wrong environment is more dangerous? That's the part people can't grasp. They see the car and think homeless. I see the car and think mobile autonomy. They see instability. I see flexibility. They see risk. I see peace. And here's the deeper layer. When someone chooses a path that doesn't match the template, it challenges the collective belief that there's only one way to survive, and that makes people uneasy. Because if there are multiple ways to survive, then maybe they have more choice than they've allowed themselves to believe. And that realization is destabilizing. So instead of exploring it, they project fear onto you. I'm not mad at them for it, but I am done absorbing it. Concern is fine. Projection is not. And I think this is important for anyone listening who's doing something unconventional, whether that's leaving a relationship, changing careers, cutting off family, moving into a tiny space, starting over from scratch, again. People will panic. Not necessarily because you're in danger, but because you're stepping outside the blueprint that they rely on to feel safe. And that's not your responsibility to fix. You don't owe anyone a life that makes them comfortable. You owe yourself alignment. And sometimes alignment looks messy until it gets straightened out. Sometimes it looks uncertain. Sometimes it looks like something most people would never choose. But if it feels peaceful to you, let me say that one more time because that is so damn important. If it feels peaceful to you inside your soul, that's all that matters. I don't need everyone to understand my choices. I just need to be able to live with them without everyone else's projections. And for the first time in my life, I actually can. And that's not recklessness. That is absolutely self-trust.